before we get into something more interesting, I'm going to take you through a little bit about history of the company and where we've been, where we're at now, kind of where we're going forward. And mainly I want to talk about some new products, new processes, and then some new people, some new faces that we see, and sort of how we're positioning the company going forward. So you guys, as we look through this presentation and as we talk about it, if you have questions, I'm going to show some different things that we did in 2017, different pictures that Paige took, that I took, of forages and cover crops and a lot of other things that we were involved with. So if you have questions on anything you see, now's the time. It's going to be the time to shoot your hand up and ask those questions. So Southeast AgriSeeds was founded in 2016, so we're a pretty new company. However, we were founded as a branch of King's AgriSeeds initially. My history is I'd grown up in Northwest Georgia, moved into the Northeast and lived up there for a number of years, worked on a dairy farm, really saw the value in maximizing and optimizing forage production and what that did for profitability on the farm. So I got excited about that, really started bringing that back home with me and talking to producers in my local area, and really started to see the need for it and the interest level in improved forage production. And so one thing we wanted to do as we started to work in the Southeast, we wanted to position a company that had product differentiation and support and service differentiation from our Northeast sister company, but then also had some of the same deliverables or same things that we were talking about as they did in terms of forage production. We also wanted to make sure we worked through a dealer network, so we just introduced 2 dealers there. Again, they're key to our operation. And the main thing is we wanted to deliver these high-value forage and cover crop products and then the support to go with them. So our overall mission is to serve you guys with dealers that are equipped to deliver these unique products and unique sets of services to you, with a goal of optimizing productivity. I always use the word optimize because to me it considers both the productivity and the profitability of an operation. So you'll hear me say that a couple of times through this presentation. We do want to be different. We do want to provide an increased level of service, and we expect you to hold us to that. We expect you guys to ask us questions, to call on our services, because that's what we enjoy doing. We have a group of people here that are passionate about what they do. They're very interested in your operation and you personally, and making sure that we're a good fit as we work with you, and we can together as a team alongside the dealer, we can improve your profitability. So we want to be a resource for you. So in 2017 we learned a lot, we accomplished a lot alongside our dealers, and I just want to take you through some pictures here. And again, if you see anything that interests you or that confuses you, let me know. So here's a picture that was taken, a soybean field, so that both of these are soybeans here. This side was planted in a cover crop of raised crazy mix, and then they put up a poly fence and he grazed it. And this side was planted in just a regular cereal rye with no grazing. So you can see the difference in the productivity of those two bean fields and the cleanliness of this one as far as weed control. So we're really seeing some of those effects of that grazing action, as well as having that diverse cover crop in that system. Here's one of our unique forages, the 9301 Sudan grass. Has a lot smaller stem than what you get out of your Sudex or sorghum Sudan products. It's a dry stalk characteristic. You can take it for dry hay as long as you don't let it get too tall. It can definitely be taken for dry hay, which is a very unique feature in that Sudan grass or sorghum Sudan lineup. So we're really excited about this one. Had a lot of acres go in last year of this. It performs very, very well in dry conditions. How many of you have planted Sudex before, or sorghum Sudan? About a couple folks, yeah. Well, this takes that to the next level. So it's really a much more versatile version of a sorghum Sudan in just a straight Sudan grass variety. So yesterday I let Paige talk a little bit about this. You want to come back up and say what's going on here. So this is related to planting that sorghum sudan or sudan grass or those summer annuals. This was a little demo that was done by an extension agent in North Carolina. So.
Yeah, Josh always lets me talk about this because I get way too excited about it. It's hard for me to do anyway. But like you said, this was a demonstration that was done by an extension agent in Catawba County, North Carolina, which is kind of like the foothills of the mountains. And what he was trying to demonstrate, a lot of farmers want to increase their summer productivity of their cool season perennial grasses like fescue, but they don't necessarily want to spray and kill the fescue. So a lot of times we'll end up with sorghum sudan or pearl millet or sudan grass drilled straight into that fescue stand and cool season perennial stand. So what he wanted to show was just how much competition that cool season perennial is still providing, even though it's during the summer. So on the left here, we've got what was a fescue stand, and he sprayed to terminate it and used glyphosate. And then there to the right, he also he did not spray here. He just mowed that fescue down really low, and he fertilized both of these with 60 units of nitrogen. And you might not, obviously you can see the huge reduction in yield just from where they terminated the stand of fescue versus where they did not. But I'll be honest, I've never seen a stand that was drilled into fescue quite this good. Most of what I see is like this right here. So this is where he drilled straight into that fescue stand and did not fertilize at all. So Josh does such a great job of explaining kind of the point of this whole discussion, which is you can do a lot more with a lot less. So instead of drilling 20 acres of sorghum sudan into your existing stand of fescue, why don't you just spray and kill 5 acres and you keep it an annual rotation, and you're going to get just as much production off that 5 acres as you would if you had not terminated and drilled straight into that 20 acres. So this is pretty powerful to me. Thanks, Josh.
Yep. So yeah, that's a good point. So when we get a little more intentional about our production, and we're not trying to cross over seasons and grow, a cool season perennial in the same stand as a cool season or a warm season annual. We're not trying to cross over that growth production curve and put competitive crops in the same location. We can really do a lot for our yield and overall productivity. So this is, DJ referred to this earlier, but this is a crabgrass. We did a lot of work with crabgrass last year, tremendous amount of interest, and we learned a lot from crabgrass. It can be very productive, and then it can also be very challenging. So this was a field that was planted here with the seed tubes just dropping the seed right in front of the press wheels, and then they didn't like how that was doing, so they put the seed tubes back on and then continued to drill it, and this is what they got. So they got that too deep. It's very sensitive to seeding depth, and there were had quite a few failures with guys who thought they could get away with maybe running it through their drill, or maybe had their soil that was a little too fluffy when they broadcasted it and cultipacked, or maybe they didn't cultipack at all, and we saw some challenges with that crabgrass. So we learned from that. We moved forward along with the producers. So. This is Paige in a field of a summer mixture. This is a Ray's Crazy mixture, and it has a lot of different variety species that are in there for dual purpose. One for forage production, the other reason is for cover crop or soil health improvement. We've got deep taproot species in there, as well as just a lot of diversity in terms of root systems and how they work in the soil. So it's exciting to see some of these diverse summer annual mixtures and what they can do for us, in addition to providing a lot of high value forage, a lot of really good quality forage. So this is Ray's Crazy fall mix here, or winter mix. This is actually in spring. Everything's in bloom, so we're getting a lot of nitrogen out of that, a lot of high biomass, a lot of yield there. This producer is actually turning this back under and then planting corn behind it, so he's just using it for a cover crop. This is a cover crop with turnips as well as triticale. So this is actually overwintered and come through the spring there, and for a grazing or cover crop. This is a hole that was made by one of the radishes, a daikon radish or deep taproot type radish that breaks up soil compaction and really makes a nice cavity in the soil for water infiltration. The biggest thing about these that you can't see in this picture is that they have a taproot that goes a lot deeper than this big tuber. It really does good getting deep and breaking up that compaction and helping with water infiltration. This is nodulation on some cowpeas, so we're getting nitrogen production out of some of these legume crops. As long as we use the appropriate inoculant and really boost their production and their ability to produce nitrogen. So again, dual purpose forage and cover crop and nitrogen production. This is one of those radishes, again, big tuber, and then you can see some of these little taproots down here. This is a real neat picture showing some of the diversity of the difference, the variance in different varieties and what we're seeing. So this is a real sort of unique one where we have significant top growth, a smaller tuber, so not as big on the tuber, and then that deep taproot. So, and then these are the larger, more bulb type varieties that are really opening up that ground on the top. So. This is what they look like as they rot, as they start to decay, and they feed the biology in the soil and really do a good job with improving the overall health of the soil. So this is a forage sorghum plants, brown midrib forage sorghum, big wide leaf. This would be taken to full maturity and chopped at a soft dough stage when the grain's in soft dough. Paige, it's a little hard to see. I couldn't get this one yesterday. What is that?
So that's a mix of Boytan's vegetabilium, Cajun 2, and HLR orchard grass. So
okay.
It's a perennial blend that's actually going to be used for grazing horses.
Okay, so that's a perennial grazing blend with a considerable amount of grass diversity in there in terms of different species. So. This is orchard grass, actually close to where I live. So this was an endurance orchard grass that was planted in fall of 16 and managed in spring of 17 for hay. And I'd encourage this producer to raise his cutter bar up and not cut that so short so that we could get quick regrowth on that. He had some areas of the field where he kind of swung out and scalped the ground a little bit, and they weren't showing any regrowth. And this is about a week's worth of regrowth on that orchard grass. So again, some of these things in practice, as we talk about them, we take them from theory to reality. It's really neat to see how we can improve our performance overall. So how about this one? Anybody plant any summer annuals that look like this? It's willing to admit it? Okay, Reed, good deal. So what do we have here? Anybody know what this is? That plant? Looks like a big weed, doesn't it? Anybody? It's sun hemp. So we have a nitrogen producing a legume crop in the sun hemp that's high protein as well. Cattle strip the leaves as they're grazing through. We also have, you can see just one little cowpea leaf there, but we have cowpeas in this mix, and then also our brown midrib millet. So you could lose some calves in there, and this producer, his name's Terry Chandler, but he plants some acreage, a certain amount of acreage in annuals every year. He likes to use a lot of diversity. He's got really high organic matter on his ground because he's been doing this for a number of years. And he grazes a lot of calves on a small amount of acreage. So he'll transition his calves, he'll wean them, turn them out on a mix like this, and continue to get good gain on them. One of the things we ran into with this mix was actually nitrates. Anybody have any nitrate problems or run into any nitrate problems with forages? Anybody? It can be an issue with the excess nitrate in the forage, and in this case it was actually 19,000 parts per million, but that was the cattle weren't affected, and he had been grazing it for about, I think, right at 50 days with it that high, and we told him about it and said, hey, you may want to think about bringing those calves out. And he said, this is where the producer offers the practical side of what we do. He said, well, the calves hadn't been affected so far, so why would I change what I'm doing? So he continued to graze it. Part of the reason they weren't affected by that is because they weren't. We took a clipping from a certain area and gathered everything, stalk and all, and the cattle were just sort of grazing through and clipping leaves off of the sun hemp and as well as the millet and cowpeas. So. This is actually a Martin II Protec, which is a novel endophyte fescue variety managed in eastern North Carolina. And this producer is Buren Lanier. He does a very good job managing those perennial fescues in an area of North Carolina that's not very common. So he does a great job with that. He's really extended where we've taken those novel endophyte varieties. So this is just a summer annual trial. This is kind of how we do some of our side-by-side trials when we're analyzing different forage varieties. This is in Stapleton, Georgia. This was the brown midrib millet Prime 180. And then just on the other side here, he had, you can't see it, it's not pictured, but on the other side he had some of the non-BMR Tiff Leaf, I think it was Tiff Leaf 3 millet. And his cattle, he turned the heifers out on this for development. And they grazed the BMR millet a lot faster than they grazed the Tiff Leaf. So that was, again, some of that practical knowledge that we pick up on. You know, the cows know what they want, and they perform well on these higher value forages, and they're drawn to them. So that was neat to see. We host a lot of field days. This was a field day in central North Carolina with one of our dealers, Scott Balcom there. He has some poultry houses and raises cattle in addition to being a seed dealer, and does a really good job, you know, getting a group of guys together to talk about forages and some of the different ways that we can produce. So this is a grass finished beef. This is actually at Tim's place in Pennsylvania. So this is our northern counterparts here. This is a very diverse mixture of cool season perennial grasses, legumes, and forbs as well. So in addition, you know, I showed you some of those pictures, and in addition to that, we did publish a research report in conjunction with King's. It's really important that we continue to work with them. They do have a large staff, and we're able to work with them on some of these research projects to continue to publish good information. So we were able to get this research document in the hands of our dealers so that they could learn from it and then bring that out to you guys on your farm. So we also expanded our Kingfisher lineup, and we've got some brochures on the literature table back there, and they're listed in our product guide. But Kingfisher is a brand that we manage in conjunction with King's AgriSeeds and Byron Seeds, so there are 3 companies involved, and it's just an indicator of quality and consistency. And we've added, first we started with our alfalfa lineup, and we had a good quality, good consistency in that lineup, really good performance out of what we're selecting for those. We combine the research efforts of the 3 companies as well as the marketing efforts of the 3 companies to help to continue to develop varieties that we place in the Kingfisher lineup. This past year we introduced the livestock-focused corn hybrids in the Kingfisher lineup, as well as the summer annuals. So we introduced a BMR sorghum sedan and then a BMR forage sorghum into that lineup. So this is Sugar Pro 55 and this is Fiber Pro 70. And then this year the Prime 180 and Prime 360 millets are now in that lineup as well. So this is a Kingfisher hybrid. Kingfisher is all non-GMO brand. This producer was actually on a wildlife preserve in let's see, he's in northern South Carolina, right kind of on the line between South and North Carolina. Produces on a wildlife preserve, so he's not able to use the traits or the insect trait products or Roundup Ready traits or glyphosate tolerant traits. So it's a conventional product, and he can't use the neonicotinoid treatments like Poncho 250 or Cruiser 250. So we're able to fit that market really well with a hybrid that he didn't have to sacrifice any yield on. So this year in 2018, we released the Red Tail hybrid, which is our traded version of the Kingfisher products. We released the 113-day hybrid. And again, last year we did introduce the Prime 180 and 360 millets, and now these products are Kingfisher products this year as well. So they went through the process of development, and we vetted those well so that we could now call them Kingfisher. So how many of you have planted millet in the past? We got millet producers. How about any of the BMR millets? Does anybody want to say anything about the differences or what you saw or witnessed from that? Anybody? Paige, raise your hand. Anybody except for Paige?
I'm sorry, I just got too excited.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak for a trial that we did in North Carolina, because I thought it was, again, it was an extension agent driven. Millen is very influential in his area. And what we did is we did a strip of ground top millet, because that does get planted pretty often for forage. We did a standard pearl millet, we did tip leaf, and then we did our 2 VMR millets. And what we found is that, as expected, the ground top millet, after the first time it got grazed, it was absolutely destroyed and didn't come back. And the cattle also preferentially grazed the VMR millet. So that was pretty neat to see, and I thought it really opened a lot of people's eyes, especially about the ground top millet. So. Yeah,
and I was just thinking, sometimes I get excited and get ahead of myself on some of these, but for those of you who don't know, brown midrib is basically an indicator of quality. It's an indicator of digestibility, and it actually shows up in a plant in the mid vein. The mid vein of the leaf will actually be brown. So in these millet crops, that mid vein is very pronounced. These millets, these 2 millet varieties also have other unique characteristics. They're shorter in structure because of the internode spacing. They have shorter internode spacing, so more leaf, less stalk. They have great regrowth and good overall yield potential. And then for those of you carrying the millets a little bit farther into the fall, they also have very good stay green, so they're able to maintain green leafy forage, later into the I'll say later into the summer, into the early fall. So at some point we do want to rotate into a winter annual forage. So that's what those look like. Very, very big leafy plant. I had a producer that texted me a picture last summer. He planted 200